What is wrong with Alex Ovechkin? Through two playoff games, he has only registered one shot on goal. Let's discuss next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. If you're new to the show, my name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for 3 seasons for Locked On. I did it for various other outlets before that, and am a host of the weekly show called the Capitals Minutecast. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it's being a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or on Google Play. And this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the burning question of what is wrong with Alex Ovechkin. Through 2 games, he has only registered one shot on goal. This is an Alex Ovechkin who got off to his slowest start in his career, but really turned on the Jets after the All-Star break, has been pretty much non-existent through the first 2 games. We'll talk about that. A little bit later, we will talk about the importance of physicality in this series thus far and what to expect in the next game. And then we'll talk about how the Capitals, despite being down 0-2 in the series, they're not giving up. But just to get it going here, talking about Alex Ovechkin and what is wrong with him. Why has he been not important in this? And why does he seem disinterested in what is going on the ice? To a certain extent, it almost seems like he is just kind of sitting back and waiting for the other guys to make the big plays, and he'll post up from his office and try to do what he does best and has done for so many years, and that is drive home pucks on the power play or in general from his office at the left dot. But the thing that's different in this series is that the Rangers are prepared for what he's doing. The tape on him is there. They know what he does best, and they've prepared for him. And Peter Laviolette was his head coach last season. There is no secret what Alex Ovechkin is going to do on any given night. But it's not just that. It's the fact that he's not moving his feet. One of the things that kind of stymied his start to the season was the fact that he wasn't moving his feet. A lot of people linked his success in the second half of the season is that he was finally moving his feet. He's moving around. It seems like something that has been forgotten in the postseason. One of the things that I know for sure is that if the Capitals have any plans of winning this series, which I understand is a Hail Mary pass, they're going to have to do it with Alex Ovechkin being a contributor. Like I've said on the show, if you're an everydayer of the show, as Alex Ovechkin goes, so go the Capitals. It's interesting that the Capitals struggled to start the season and played that much better when Ovi turned it on. That is why we need to see more from the Great 8. And kind of let's take the face off the clock and look at the gears. What is wrong with Alex Ovechkin? What is behind his up and down season? It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but there are certain things to consider. It's Ovechkin, but it's not just Alex Ovechkin that is struggling. So what's wrong with him? He was all zeros in the first game and then registered one shot on goal in the second game. And that's been pretty much it. To start the season, we were talking about that, he wasn't getting the goal production, but he was at least getting assists. He's not even doing that. He seems disinterested. He mishandled a pass that led to Mika Zibanejad picking up the puck and a tic-tac-toe goal. The Keandre Miller goal kind of exemplifies what I'm talking about with him being disinterested. And it's something that he didn't seem like, he seemed pretty blasé about it. I didn't care that much. In the post-game presser, he said, I have to do better. And I'll talk a little bit more about what his quote was. But we need to see more responsibility from Alex Ovechkin with the puck and not with the puck. We need to see him play some better hockey because he has been disappointing, I'm going to go ahead and say. And we need to see a whole lot more from that. Ovi said of the misplay, yeah, it was kind of a weird bounce, and I think that Zibanejad played stick on stick, Ovi said. How I said, lucky bounce, but I have to play safer, especially in that kind of moment. And, that is Alex Ovechkin kind of being easy on himself, that was a big deal in the game. Just him mailing it in through the first two games is unacceptable. And it's interesting, he knows that he's not playing well. In the post-game presser after game one, he said, I'll take one question, and that was it. So he knows he's struggling. And one of the things that I've seen in Alex Ovechkin is he looks defeated when he's sitting on the side on the bench there. He looks defeated and he's looking his age. I know that he's a guy that's had gray hair for many years, but his face is looking older. And I don't want to read into it too much, but he just looks like a defeated man out there. And part of it, I'm going to go ahead and say, at least in part, is age. TJ Oshie talked about it as much, is that it's much easier to get up for these kind of things when you're a younger man. But for the Rangers to be just pouring it on, it seems like some of the older players, Alex Ovechkin in particular, are struggling. It seems like he, is setting up out there from his left office, like I said, and just trying to let the other guys do the work. We saw the Caps try to mix it up where Carlson was at the left circle earlier in the season and Ovi was set up more towards the blue line, kind of mixing and matching Carlson and Ovechkin. And we saw some success with that on the power play during the regular season, but it only seemed like it was for a limited amount of time. And why do I bring up the power play? Well, Alex Ovechkin gets quite a bit of production on the power play and is clutch oftentimes doing that. But much like an old pair of shoes, Ovi went back to what's comfortable. Whether it's on the PP or not, Ovi needs to get in more shots. What I'm talking about, an old pair of shoes, he got the new shoes. He put them on. They made his feet sore, so he decided to go back to the old shoes and set up from the office. He got compliments on the new shoes, but ultimately the old shoes are what fit best, and that is why he is going with what's comfortable. For Alex Ovechkin to be successful, we need to see more from what he did during the regular season. Different looks on the power play, crashing the net, getting more involved. It just seems like, I've said in this extent, like he's waiting for other guys to pick up the slack. But it's not just all Ovi. The Rangers have done a good job blocking shots and taking Ovi out of the equation. So it's not squarely on Alex Ovechkin's shoulders, as the Rangers are prepared. They know the book on him, and they're prepared to block shots and just take him out of the equation. The top line with Alex Ovechkin has actually got some production. Scored a goal, as a matter of fact. It's just they have removed Alex Ovechkin from the equation because ultimately, they know what he can do. Listen, Laviolette coached the Caps last season, so he knows all the ins and outs of this team. And Alex Ovechkin, Peter Laviolette even went on to say he's a player that can make a difference in a game. We're mindful of that and do our best to check him, Peter Laviolette said. So they're prepared. And, like I said, he was the head coach. And even if he wasn't, he's not very mysterious. We know what he is going to do on any given night when he's out there. But what was a bit interesting was that the head coach Spencer Carberry was uncharacteristically candid, calling out the team captain, something that has not happened often for Alex Ovechkin, but rarely do you see head coaches calling out their premier players, their captains on their team. But Carberry did. He said, I thought the first two games, he looks a little bit off. He's struggling, Carberry acknowledged. The question now, however, is how do they fix it? Do they limit the amount of minutes that he's playing out there, and who are they going to plug and play in his absence? When Alex Ovechkin is engaged, he is one of the best to ever do it. He didn't get to be sitting number 2 all time in goals for no reason, that he is getting in production. But what is behind it? And ultimately, what is Spencer Carberry willing to do to help the team as a whole, not Alex Ovechkin, accomplish their goals? Thing could change in Ovechkin's favor as the Caps head home and have more control of things. So the Capitals are leaving Madison Square Garden and are heading back to Capital One Arena, where they can have a little bit more control of things with the team getting last change. Is that going to be enough? Are Capitals fans going to be enough to help the Capitals pick up a big win in Game 3? Carberry said, "There's no doubt we're in a difficult spot going back home, but being able to play at home on home ice is nice." Hopefully it can be enough. I hope they can muster a win here. I'm hoping it's not a situation where it's a sweep and the Capitals were eliminated in a hurry. Jeff Merrick had talked about on the Jeff Merrick show today is that are the Capitals making it to the playoffs, period, is that their Stanley Cup. And what did he mean when he said that? Is most people had written off the Capitals as not even making it to the playoffs. Are the Capitals content with just making it to the playoffs, period? It's an interesting question. And, there's certain things to think about, like Brian McClellan. He did the things where he moved out a bunch of players at the trade deadline. In effect, that was his way of waving the white flag. It's, I think, a fairly safe thing to say that the Capitals would be much better right now had they had Anthony Mantha on this team, the guy that scored a lot of goals this year. Joel Edmondson, a rugged defenseman. Kuznetsov, I'm not going to go ahead and say they'd be that much better because we know who Kuzi is. But I think that, if you take a look at Edmondson and Mantha in particular, I think the Capitals would have been better. So to a certain extent, I think that the Capitals, I think that Brian McClellan and Spencer Carberry, they're kind of starting to see the lay of the land. They would never say openly that they feel like they're out of it, but just based on the actions at the trade deadline and Spencer Carberry reading between the lines saying how outmatched the Capitals are out there, that I think to a certain extent they're putting on a strong face that the Capitals are going to do their level best. I think Ovechkin and Oshie and the veterans on the team, they want to believe it, but I think they know in their heart of hearts, this is tough, maybe a lot tougher than they thought, and it's not going to get easier. So I think to a certain extent, I'm not waving the white flag on the season. What I am going to say is the Capitals winning this series is going to be a Hail Mary pass that I don't know if they're going to be able to connect with a wide receiver. I'm hoping that they can. We've seen this before in 2018 when they struggled with Columbus and Tampa and Vegas. It's a different playing field, though. It's different players. Ultimately, I hope that Alex Ovechkin can get it done. But one of the things that I know for sure, is don't doubt Ovi. Don't doubt him. We all made that mistake. I made that mistake. A lot of the insiders made that mistake. We've been guilty of it before. Remember Ovi's slow start, 23 goals in the final 36 games of the season after managing just 8 through the opening 46 games. Stranger things have happened. Alex Ovechkin has found a way to overcome before. In this season alone, he has vacillated between being one of the worst players to one of the better players. I think he can do it again. That is ultimately the hope and prayer for Capitals fans. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, we will talk about the importance of physicality in this game. We've seen it with Artemi Panarin. We've seen the fisticuffs after the play. I think it is only going to intensify as this series goes on. How important is physicality in a series like this? I'll discuss straight ahead. We've all been there before, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you and your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your head up and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to you and your buddies. There's so much that you can do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, charge other players rent for iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or on Google Play. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you the can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So before this series even started, I laid out the Capitals' plans for success. I think that at least in part, it could be a game changer. We have not seen it brought to life. I have not seen it exemplified, but I still think that there is a chance that the Capitals can get markedly better if they up their physical game. I think the Capitals are playing cautiously because they don't want to get penalized and be on the PK, and I get all of that. But you take a look at the Rangers, they have not had that same reservation. Now we have seen skirmishes behind the play when the play's done after the whistle. We've seen mix-ups by the net, those kind of things, but we haven't seen the fighting. I think that in certain instances could be a game changer. In game number 3, the one thing that I want to see if things are going awry is for a big fight, something to switch and change the momentum of this series. The Capitals have got to do absolutely whatever they have to do to pick up a win in game 3. You do not want to go down 0-3 in the series. That is an uphill climb that even some of the best teams cannot summit. So I think that if things get out of hand, Tom Wilson, Dylan McIlrath, whoever the case is, take the handcuffs off of them and let them do what they do best and throw down. That is what we have to do. We have to crash the net. We have to get inside Shesterkin's head. He's dialed in. He does not give the Capitals a lot of opportunities. We need to screen the goalie to make it more difficult. You need a bigger guy in front of him, like a Protus or something like that, and just really do what you do best. We've seen it during the season. I know that it's different in postseason hockey, but we need to see it. And we saw the big thing. The Artemi Panarin is the thing that is kind of in the forefront of every Capitals fan's mind, and the feeling of that it was a botched call. I still do. I think that I've watched it back a couple different times. I do believe that it was a blown call. I thought the refs did blow the call. Let's not forget Panarin was initially called for a major penalty, but after officials reviewed it, they rescinded their call and determined it to be clean. So the knee-jerk reaction was a major penalty, but ultimately it doesn't matter now because the NHL's Department of Player Safety is passing on giving New York Rangers superstar any supplemental discipline. The question I am going to ask Capitals fans, the question that I'm going to ask Rangers fans, as I know there are quite a few Rangers fans that love this show with their kind comments. I wouldn't have it any other way. I love you Rangers fans because you love your team. Is that what would happen if Tom Wilson did the very same thing? What if happens in game number 3, something similar happens to Panarin, Zibanejad, one of your upper echelon premier players? Are you going to say, hey, Dan, give it up? Are you going to say, are you going to cry foul? Are you going to say the refs are blowing it? I think it is going to be interesting. Now, listen, I'm not saying the Oshie hit in a vacuum affected the outcome of the game. I really don't. I think that if you remove that play from the equation of the game, I just think that it still wouldn't matter. It's just what it's all about. And I think to a certain extent, I think it was the refs trying to fix it because they knew they blew a call earlier when Oshie had Panarin in a headlock. And people are saying, Rangers fans were up in arms saying, hey, why is there not a penalty? So that was the refs' way of making it right. Kind of a flawed way of doing things. It's the way it's been done for years. But in any event, I just want the acknowledgement that, hey, We blew it. What am I saying is that Panarin got away with a cheap shot. He did. I challenge Rangers fans out there to watch the play again and look at it objectively and ask yourself, was that a clean play? I don't want to hear former stories about what Tom Wilson did, anything of that nature. I'm talking about that play in a vacuum. What are your actual thoughts? Rangers fans are quick to come to his defense. Panarin, that is. I wonder how they would feel if one of their tough guys gets laid out on Friday. How many years has it been since the whole Panarin jumped on Wilson's back and Wilson threw him down like a rag doll? And the fans of that still talk about that to this day. There's Rangers fans and Caps fans that have been watching this podcast as of late, and I get your enthusiasm for your team. I really do, and I respect it. You love the Rangers, as you should. That is your hometown team. President's Trophy winners is nothing to scoff at, so giving respect where respect is due. But in fairness, Oshie was skating at Panarin, went in for a check, catching Oshie up high and appearing to catch him in the head with his shoulder in neck. The definition of what should have been a major in that situation. And Dylan Strome, don't take my words for it, was on the bench. He said, I saw it live. I feel like when you see a guy's head snap back kind of from that side, obviously, Panarin, I don't think he's a dirty player by any means, but I don't know. I don't see how they review it and then dismiss it. It looked like he got hit in the head. I don't know. It looked like the shoulder in the head. Again, I have no doubt that it was a dirty play. What I do think it was the ref's way of making it right, because it was the perception that they blew a call when Oshie kind of put Panarin in a bit of a headlock and was jousting back and forth with him. So, in any event, that is the lay of the land. Should Oshie have been penalized for that? For sure. But you can't, miss calls and then make them up. You need to assess it, in real time. Again, to be clear here, I don't think even if you removed the Oshie getting hit in the head equation, the Capitals would not have won the game. I'm just talking about that there has been a lot, not a lot of consistency or cohesiveness with the plays in this game. It seems like that the refs are calling everything one moment and putting the whistles in their pocket the next. What we want as NHL fans, just not Capitals fans, is consistency. Per NHL rulebook 48.1, for an illegal check to the head, a hit resulting in contact with opponent's head where the head was the main point of contact, and such contact to the head was avoidable, is not permitted. It was deliberate. Make no mistake about it. Regardless of your thoughts of it, again, I challenge you, if you question it, to watch the playback again. But talking about physicality in general, it's going to be key for the Capitals to do it. In game 3, bring the energy, bring the physicality. Alex Ovechkin, if you can't score goals, I want you finishing checks. I want the Rangers to feel the Capitals' rage. And if there is no rage out there, I don't know what is wrong. The Capitals, the players for sure understand the implications if they lose this series. Our hard work was in vain, and it's going to be the postseason. I don't know. Is Alex Ovechkin jonesing to go back to Russia? I say that with hyperbole, but it just seems like understand the gravity of the situation, that you're not getting any younger, Ovechkin, that a lot of the Capitals players, you're not getting any younger. Seize the day. Go down fighting. Go down swinging, whatever it takes. Bring the physicality, and I think you will like the outcome. Because if you can mess with their head, there's at least a chance the Capitals can pick up a win. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, the Capitals are not giving up. They're not. So any thought about them being down 0-2 in the series, that they should just wave the white flag and call it a day, is nonsense. I'll discuss next. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building a talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching assessments and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. So if you are involved in the hiring process, if you are involved in HR, you need Indeed. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why you need Indeed. You only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/locked on to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on. One more time, Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. You need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So despite the fact that the Capitals are down all 0-2, and it was pretty rough in game one, and I think that they showed signs of improvement in game number 2, the Capitals are not waving the white flag. They're not. They're in it. This is a team that has a pedigree. It has a history of doing great things. It is one of the teams that has lost its way. I'm going to go ahead and say the last 2-3 years here. But before that, it was a team that was one of the better teams in the NHL 4 years. The Capitals had won the President's Trophy before. They have done great things. They won the Stanley Cup in 2018. They have a history of playing great hockey. So if you think this Capitals team is going to walk away from this with a tail between their legs, you better think again. And if it's not Alex Ovechkin, Tom Wilson, and a lot of the other guys on the team are going to step up and make their mark. I really do believe it. I don't think that this is going to be a sweep. I do think that the Capitals are going to do their level best to make it interesting. We've seen it before. We've seen this team rally before. I think it's possible. So what's next? The Capitals are not backing down. They're no stranger to adversity. The Caps always play better, though, when they get on the board first. Historically, you take a look back at the analytics, the Capitals, much like, I guess, a lot of other teams, play that much better when they're playing from an advantage or a lead. So if the Capitals in game number 3 can get on the board first, well, that could be an absolute game changer. I think the first goal, especially on the road, is very important in playoffs in general. If you can get that first goal, that means you got the momentum on your side. TJ Oshie said, playoff games are all about momentum, shifting back and forth. The longer you can keep it, the better. Momentum, that is an operative word there that I want you to underline, and doing whatever it takes to harness said momentum. If it means getting physical, if it means really upping your game, being tough on the forecheck, blocking shots, doing absolutely whatever you've got to do to win the game, that is momentum exemplified. That is what the Capitals need to do. The Capitals started really strong. Mistakes proved to be costly for the Capitals, and that is something that needs to be eliminated in game number 3. That's the frustrating part. We've been good in those situations all year, Carberry said. This is a whole different animal, playoffs, opponent, and all of that stuff. And, you've seen the Capitals struggle with certain teams throughout the year. And it seems like for whatever reason, you take a look at the Maple Leafs. They had issues with, the Red Wings before, but they've also been able to win games that no one thought they were going to be able to win. Take a look at the Bruins, the Canucks, the Jets, other games with the Red Wings that they can find a way to win in clutch situations. That is what they need to harness. If they have any of that left in a bottle, go ahead and take out the stopper there and let it out, and let's see what this Capitals team has in the tank. But the Rangers themselves, they're not going to back down either, and facing adversity is nothing new for them either. There's going to be times that we go down in the playoffs, but we can't let that affect the way we play our game, especially if it's an early deficit, Trocheck said. So they have the same mentality. That is obviously a team that knows how to win games as well, as evident in the standings. But I'm going to go ahead and say that the Rangers are not the best team in the playoffs. There are other teams that are, say, the Rangers do move on to the next round. I don't think it's going to be easy for them to march into victory lane, winning a Stanley Cup. They are playing very good hockey. I'm not here to diminish what they did or have done thus far, but it's not going to be easy for them. And I think the Capitals, with that chip on their shoulder, that underdog mentality, is something that could potentially fuel a victory here. And all you need to do is win one. Don't widen the lens too much and talk about the series. Let's just talk about getting a dub in this series. And I think that could be the momentum that we've seen help this Capitals team throughout this season. That when they've struggled, they've kind of wallowed. Well, the Capitals have wallowed in the first two games. Let's rise above. Let's find a way to pick up a win in game number 3. Let's go, boys. Let's get it done. All right, listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are ultimately what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On's 24/7 streaming channel available on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holney, and I'll talk to you again next time.